Now that we have a better sense of who we have participating today, I would really like to bring in my two amazing colleagues and listing them in alphabetical order, Cole Berry and Tom Cadota. They are two of our fantastic consultants here at Belmar that have executed on solutions for our nonprofit clients. Cole and Tom, thank you so much for participating today. To get started, how are you feeling and how jazzed are you to share your thoughts and experience around case management?
You want me to go, Tom? Yeah, excited to be here, Lara. Thanks for hosting, and excited to kind of touch on the platform and just go through some of the general questions we have here, and hopefully shed some light and insight into Salesforce as it relates to nonprofits, from everything from the the overall solution to project delivery and all the stuff in between. So excited.
Very cool. Tom?
Yep, same here. Yeah, as Cole said, super excited to introduce this. Case and program management is a relatively new solution and product in the Salesforce space. So I know there's a lot of questions out there, so happy to get to them today.
Awesome. And both of you having chosen careers within the Salesforce ecosystem, what is it particular that makes you passionate about Salesforce as a platform or a way to build a career?
Hey, yeah, good question. I think it's first and foremost, the organization itself, I think, is a stand-up organization. You see the things that they do, and it makes you just feel good to work with such an incredible organization. But then the platform itself, I think it's just so extendable that you can make it bend to any sort of use case that you come across. So you're not limited by an organization's processes. It doesn't matter what the processes are. Ultimately, you can figure out a way to kind of bend the solution itself around any sort of organization.
Yeah, I think for me, it's you're able to see and drive these technology transformations that these organizations go through. And as Cole said, the technology is so flexible, and each project that comes in is unique on its own. So you get exposed to so many different types of organizations in this space. It's really cool to see.
It sounds really interesting too, from your perspective as people that like to solve problems on a day-to-day basis.
The problems are never ending.
Never ending. Keep them coming.
Awesome. So let's maybe get some groundwork on this subject by laying down a couple of definitions. So, this is about case and program management. What exactly is nonprofit case and program management? Tom?
Sure. Yeah. As it relates to Salesforce, typically a lot of either enterprise or for-profit or nonprofit organizations use Salesforce as a way to track revenue. So for nonprofits, a lot of it is fundraising, grants, donations, things like that. Where case and program management come into play, they extend that functionality and really touch on a different side of it. So case and program management, I guess in a nutshell, it's a way for nonprofits to integrate their processes surrounding, the programs that they have, the services that they deliver, and also the clients enrolled in those programs all into Salesforce. So they're kind of, two components to a larger solution there.
Okay. And, looking at program management and case management, how are they different and how do they complement each other?
Yep, for sure. So yeah, program management module and case management are, it's a solution and a product put together. So I guess I'll start with program management. So program management basically within Salesforce helps define what programs you deliver. And you can help define within each program, what services do you have under each program. So for example, under, a youth development organization, a program can be, an art program for high school students. And the services you provide are art workshops every Monday and Wednesday. And what you can do with that is track the clients that are enrolling into your program. So for example, you can see, like Brenda and Tom enrolling into this art program as, a cohort for a specific high school. And you can track their progress through that and see how they, progress through this program, what services they have been provided, how many classes they've attended. And it's really useful for that case. In terms of case management, so case management is built on top of program management, and it helps extend that even further. So for case management, it drives that functionality one level deeper towards more personalized and individualized services. So service providers and case managers can not only track, what programs a certain client is a part of, but they can also track, what incoming referrals are coming in, what outgoing referrals are we referring out, how can we track the intake progress when we're actually qualifying these clients into our program, how can I develop goal plans for each client, case notes for each client, and all keep that within the same system. And all of these data points are reportable as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. So say, I'm an organization currently using Excel. How would this make my life easier, and what pain would it alleviate?
Yeah, for sure. So, like a lot of Salesforce solutions, it really centralizes your data, and it does make reporting a lot more efficient and just quicker to build and pull up. So for, an example is if your data that you're inputting in Salesforce for your programs and clients and all that, you can set running reports that you're subscribed to on a regular cadence. So you don't have to keep building those reports every quarter or every month or whatever you need.
And just to maybe just to touch on that a little bit too, I think one of the biggest draws of Salesforce is that it's technology that lives in the cloud. So that means that if you're a nonprofit that's currently running your business or organization off Excel spreadsheets, that means that instead of you having to email your colleague an Excel spreadsheet with that data, and now they make changes to it, now you have two different versions. You have everything that is being interacted with directly in the cloud, if you will. So as users are accessing records or making updates to clients in the system, then other users who have access to those records are able to see those changes in real time. So it's really reducing a lot of duplication of effort and making sure that you have sort of one source of truth, if you will. And that's just kind of just general Salesforce, which also applies very well to nonprofits that are migrating off of a system that could be Excel based or Google Sheet based or what have you.
Awesome.
And even more like, sorry, Lara, just to add on to what Cole was saying, like even more for program and case management, we understand that program managers, case managers, and these service providers, it's a heavy job to deal with, a lot of these clients, and also inputting this data into another system. And there's a ton of administrative tasks that come along with it. And, these solutions build these administrative tasks into Salesforce. We have automation in there, so it makes it easier for them to focus on their clients rather than the actual administrative stuff.
That's very cool. I've heard about some of the impact from some of our clients that have implemented these solutions, and it's not uncommon to typically see somebody spending a week out of every month building out their funder report, through Excel spreadsheets pre-Salesforce, and then being able to build that in like less than an hour. And I joke about it a lot, but I quite frequently see clients cry when they realize that there's a much better way. And honestly, I think that's probably one of the most rewarding pieces of my work. So thank you for really speaking around those pieces. Backing up a little bit, there's a lot of words about Salesforce, but then there's also Microsoft and, a ton of different CRMs out there. How do you see Salesforce as being different from other CRMs that are available for nonprofits?
I think that's a good question. And I think that the biggest thing that I see as the main difference between Salesforce and other CRMs, and I think Microsoft and Salesforce are kind of in the same realm there, is that a lot of times when you are choosing another software product that is not Salesforce to kind of run your organization with, you are confined to the way that that platform was built or set up. And lots of times they are, or I would say most of the time, they are set up in such a way or built that they are a best practice way of performing a certain set of processes or procedures. Now that's all fine and great, but what happens if your organization suddenly has a process or a nuance that doesn't fit well within that other CRM solution? Sometimes you may be able to customize those other CRM platforms to allow you to meet whatever your new process is, but a lot of times you're not able to customize those other platforms. And Salesforce really shines in that you can build on any single thing within the system in any way that you want. So you have, again, Salesforce kind of like is an out-of-the-box best practice platform that you get, but then you can specialize that even further to meet whatever your organization's processes are. So Salesforce, again, it gives you the ability for non-developer users, so people who don't know how to write code, giving them the ability to extend the platform to facilitate other business processes that business may have. And the reality is that I don't think I've ever seen a single organization that I've worked with that is the exact same as another organization. I think the reality is that each organization has its own nuances, and Salesforce, it can be extended to meet those nuances.
Awesome. So I think, that kind of hints at how you might respond to this one, Cole, but why Salesforce versus a commercial off-the-shelf solution geared for case and program management? There's a lot out there. Why Salesforce?
Yeah, again, I'm going to defer back to my my exact same answer. It just, you may set up, you may be a newer organization set up with an off-the-shelf product. And again, as I mentioned, that product may be set up in a way that is best practices to meet certain standards there. But after a year or two, if you start to refine your processes even more, you may find that you are starting to outgrow that out-of-the-box platform or solution, and you need something that can extend to fit whatever your processes may be. So again, it's the ability to start with a platform that you may not need to invest in building right away, but then as you start to refine your organization and your processes over time, there are things that are going to come up that you would likely want to extend the platform out for. And so getting set up with a platform that gives you that ability right off the bat, even though you may not need that ability right away, I think could potentially save you a lot of time and money for potentially switching solutions or having to manually work around the limitation of whatever that out-of-the-box solution may be.
Mm-hmm. Going back to your point about being able to manage the system internally in the future, so not using code or that kind of things, we had a question that came in asking, our organization has a lot of individuals who've been with us for a lot of years. They're not tech savvy and resistant to change. Any tips or advice around that?
Yeah, I think that that is a very good question. I think it's something that can get overlooked, to be honest, by organizations, because ultimately the system that you are building can have all the bells and whistles, can automate every single little thing that users need to be doing. But if you don't have buy-in from the people who are actually using the system at the end of the day, then is the system really a success, if you will? And so if you have individuals who are less tech savvy, who may be more resistant to change, I think it's first realizing that as soon as possible. So before you've even purchased Salesforce, this may be something you've started to think about. But if you've already purchased Salesforce and you're beginning in the stages of implementing it or working with a firm to implement it, that's one of the first things that I think we should ask ourselves when we're beginning a project. Are there individuals who are maybe less tech savvy, maybe more resistant to change? And who are these individuals, and how can we overcome the risk, which is that they won't want to use this new system? I think ultimately there's kind of this art that needs to be I guess played, if you will, where you're involving these individuals, I think, as much as necessary to make sure like they feel like their voice has been heard throughout the project process. And sometimes, that can take a lot of time and potentially a lot of effort. But ultimately, I think that those things are necessary to ensure the ultimate success of the project, and make sure that when the system is rolled out, that you have buy-in from these individuals and that they ultimately feel supported with this new system that they are going to be using, and they feel comfortable and they have avenues of how to deal with things that they don't know or how to raise questions and those sorts of things. But ultimately, I think it's just getting buy-in from those individuals and making sure that they feel heard during that process.
Mm-hmm. And kind of on that, focusing more so on the not tech savvy, like what kind of resources are out there to new and ongoing Salesforce clients that are looking to increase adoption within an organization?
I think, the beautiful thing about the Salesforce ecosystem is that there are endless resources out there that, we can provide to clients or people who are trying to learn the platform. So one great example is Trailhead, which is Salesforce's, free learning resource. It's modular. It's, you can engage with it. It's like hands-on. And another thing that we recognize is that change management is so crucial to any digital transformation project. So once we do engage in these projects, it's not like we just hand them the product, the platform, and walk away. We make sure that there is sufficient training, and we provide more very robust documentation to our clients to make sure that they're equipped for success for the future, not just for now too.
Awesome. Yeah. Salesforce too, I think, like the ecosystem more so than any platform out there, really does provide career making opportunities for people to take that on within a nonprofit.
One other note I might add too is that their learning management platform, Trailhead, which Tom touched on, it's they gamify it, which means they kind of turn it into a game as much as possible. So it, even though you are learning and working, so to speak, you get rewards almost, and so you can see like yourself progressing as you start to build your expertise, and you get badges and you get points. And the cool thing about Trailhead is that they basically have trails for every single thing within Salesforce. So they'll have trails specific to items related to nonprofits. They'll have, trailheads related to like strategy for a nonprofit. They'll have trailheads related to a certain technical piece related to program and case management. So it really covers everything. The most difficult thing, I think, is just finding the right trailhead to work on that's most relevant to whatever you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we can certainly advise on too when clients are being set forth into the future with their solutions. Looking at the next question, this is a big one, and I think you touched on this previously with change management, but Cole, what's the number one reason you see implementation projects fail, and how can we avoid this?
Yeah, I think it's it's risks that come up which ultimately lead to these issues. And I think that one of the biggest risks that come up is when you have project teams. When I say project teams, I'm talking specifically about a nonprofit team in charge of working with a vendor to implement the software and then working with the vendor. So you have two teams there. I think when there's a gap in the understanding of what the organization actually needs, that's where there's misalignment between the delivery team, which was what we do as an implementation firm, and the client team. And so we build whatever we're building based on a set of requirements and documentation. And if there are gaps in those requirements and documentation, then that may lead us down a path of implementing something that actually doesn't meet the ultimate goals or needs of that client. So I think having alignment on what the system needs to do, which should always be driven based on what the functions and then users, what they need the system to do or to perform their jobs. I think those should be kind of your goalposts that you're always trying to aim for whenever you're working on a project. So I think that's probably the biggest risk for a project is misalignment on requirements, which would ultimately lead to solution that's developed that is potentially not the right solution.
And building
Go on.
off of, Cole's point on getting, the proper requirements of documentation in place, a part of that is also, making sure the right people are in the room when we're engaging in these projects. So, some things may make sense for executive and management level, but at the end of the day, who's using the system on a daily basis? Who are the end users? So we got to make sure we have those people in the room as well, so it fits into not only the management and executive processes, but the day-to-day operation processes as well.
Awesome, thank you. So, going back to the next question that I've got listed here, that was submitted. So in thinking about a move of systems, this is a data question. How much data should I migrate? How do you consider what data to migrate to your new system?
I wish there was an easy answer that says this is the one thing you need to do, but it never is, and that's, I think, just general Salesforce. It always depends, but what I always advise is there's no sense in migrating absolutely everything, because that just means it's more work, it's more scope, it takes longer, it's more complex. So it's always, what is the minimum amount of data that we need in our new system to be able to perform our jobs kind of without a hitch? So that's what the first prompt kind of I always suggest, to say, what for this specific type of data, could be contact data or what have you, we're going to migrate up to X amount of records. Like what records do you need in your system to be able to function correctly? So that is the answer that I would say is, or the question you should ask yourself when making a decision of how much data should you migrate. Everything else that you don't need to migrate, you can store, in somewhere offline that you don't need to have in the system, and you could access it if needed. But I would say that that's the question that you should ask yourselves, is what's the minimum amount of data we need to be able to function correctly?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So another question here, we have a case management solution currently and are currently funded partially by the government, which part of this funding includes data residency requirements. Can Salesforce handle this? I'm assuming this is Canadian data. We get this one a lot.
Yeah, so this one is it is a question that comes up fairly frequently, and so the answer is yes, that Salesforce can be made to comply with whatever the data requirements are. For Canada, if you're a nonprofit, then you are always set up with a Salesforce instance that has servers on Canadian soil. So data does not move over to the United States. It's always housed in Canada. Then there also are just general, I think, like HIPAA compliance rules that are kind of just serve as guidance for what the system needs to be able to do. And that HIPAA really is just a set of standards and procedures that organizations need to abide by to protect sensitive or health-related information. And so it really, again, comes down to the organization. So what are the actual requirements of your organization? We need data to be stored in Canada. Great, Salesforce can check that box. But then from there, if we have sensitive data, it's understanding which data is sensitive and which data needs to be hidden, so to speak, in the system. And Salesforce has certain procedures or functions within it that allow you to customize exactly the information that you are showing to users in the system. So when a user's logged in, if there is a certain field that is sensitive, then we can hide that for all those certain types of users and only make that available to certain types of users. So it all comes down to the security model that's implemented in each system, and that depends on organization to organization. But Salesforce has functions within it where you can build very robust security models to make sure that users, could be external users accessing your system, or internal users, are only able to see the records that they should be able to see.
Very cool, thank you. Salesforce has case management, or at least I've heard of it before. What's the difference between case management and nonprofit case management?
Yeah,
is there a difference?
This was a question that I had when I first learned about nonprofit case management, I'm like, oh wait, wasn't there case management already exists? But the main difference is, for case management, not nonprofit, case management has to do more with, customer service side of things. So a lot of the times other organizations such as for-profit companies will use a solution called Service Cloud to handle case management. And an example for this would be, a help desk function within Salesforce, or a call center, or some sort of help ticketing system within Salesforce where users can submit help cases in which your agents will, provide customer service to them with either with a help with like a technical issue or a product, or if they have a question and things like that. And nonprofit case management, as we touched on a little bit earlier, is providing individualized services to your clients within your programs. It's more on the service provider side rather than a customer service side. Does that make it a little bit more sense to you, Lara?
Absolutely, thank you. And nonprofit specific question, I think I can take this one. Are there discounts for nonprofits? So yes, absolutely. Salesforce.org is built around providing heavily discounted licensing for nonprofit organizations that enable them to leverage best-in-class technology. And while we can certainly make recommendations around the specific type of licensing that you would require for your solution or your nonprofit, the exact costs around that are typically discussed with your Salesforce account manager. So yes, absolutely, there are very significant discounts for nonprofit licensing. Next question, Cole. So what are your recommendations for phasing out a bigger digital transformation? So, so often I talk to an organization that's looking to make a first move, maybe program management or even just like their fundraising off of a legacy system. Do you have any best practices around how to phase out a larger scale project?
Yeah, I think that it all should be driven off of whatever the organization's goals are over the next X amount of years, let's just say. I think that your goals should always dictate whatever you need to do or you need the system to do. So I would say that's probably the first step in helping define what does this look like in a phased approach, because the goals may be small goals, they may be very, very large goals. And depending on how big and complex those goals are, that will ultimately dictate whatever the solution that is implemented to help meet those goals. For example, if I'm a services organization and I want to increase the number of clients we are servicing year over year by 20%, let's say, so that could be one goal. And so it's like, okay, well, how do we break that goal down into a system or things that are going to help us achieve that goal? And then from there, how can we implement a solution around providing a set of processes and procedures that are going to help us meet that goal? So I think ultimately it depends on the goals of the organization itself, and then the complexity or how big those goals are. Because, for example, if you have two different goals, such as I want to raise X amount of dollars this year from a donation perspective, but then I also want to service X amount of clients this year as a human services organization. Those are two very different goals. And in Salesforce, why I say that is they're two kind of very separate pieces of functionality. And because they're separate, you can almost think of them as existing in silo from one another. And so from there, that might be a good opportunity to phase things out. So how do we chunk things out in such a way that we're moving sort of one business unit within the organization onto the platform as necessary? Again, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think it's all dependent on the organization's goals, how big those goals are, and what the solution is to meet those goals. Because if the solution is a very large, complex, project, can that be chunked out into more bite-sized, manageable phases? And then rolled on kind of on an ongoing basis. And the benefit of that is that you're getting users onto the system right away. So you're maybe getting a better or a quicker return on investment to get to certain users on the system. And then from there, you're rolling on the rest of that team or adding on pieces of functionality. So I'm not sure if I answered the question directly, but just kind of a brain dump there of some thoughts.
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up question on that. And so like looking at chunking things out, if I were at the beginning of my journey and, knowing that there's this elaboration phase where we, create a solutions document at the end of it, but looking that there's a larger potential for digital transformation, like, is it important to know the needs of, say, fundraising as I'm building out my program in case management, or can I leave those behind and then put them to future phases?
That's a really good question. I think if you're a client and that's a question that you have or a thought that you have, ask the question to whoever you're working with, because that helps us at least know that, oh, they're also thinking about this. So it makes sense to at least start to think about what's the best way. From there, for your specific example, since those processes kind of are, they're not married to each other, they can be implemented in a phased approach. So if that requirement came up, say, oh, now we want to implement donation management along with program and case management. Ultimately, that probably needs to go through its own set of processes to make sure that it's handled in like its own standalone project, or else if it needs to be kind of integrated into this project that's already ongoing, I think that that's another discussion that would need to be had. But I think that that's something that could come up if a client says, oh, there's this really other cool piece of functionality in Salesforce called donation management. Right now we use Excel, so we're wondering if we could also just tack that on. Tack on is I guess it's a cute word, but it's there's a lot of it bears some weight, I guess, in the Salesforce world, because you can tack things on. There are things you can tack things on, but tacking on donation management likely isn't something that can just be easily rolled out. It is a fairly complex process, but went on a bit of a tangent there again, but hopefully that makes sense.
I think like a big theme here and what we've been talking about is, what we really want to adopt is this crawl, walk, run methodology where, as Cole was saying, when you want to tack on new functionalities, it's easier said than done. And at the same time, kind of touching on the change management theme is we don't want to overload, your system with all these bells and whistles in which, it might be overwhelming for people to take on all this functionality at once. So of course, first you have to crawl before you can walk, and walk before you run. So as your users adopt the system, then you can start to begin to think about, what else can we accomplish with Salesforce? What else can we add on, like donation management, grants management, volunteer management? There's basically endless possibilities of what you can do.
Amazing, thank you. Next question. So from an ongoing perspective, how do I maintain this? What if I want to make changes, and who would I need to have on my team?
For sure, that's a great question. So it again depends on the actual the organization and the actual project that was implemented. So anytime we're engaging with the client, we always try to make the system extensible, or managed or maintainable. I'm not even sure if that's a word, by the clients after it's been rolled out. There are different levels of maintenance depending on the system that is built. For example, if you're just a very simple nonprofit that's just using kind of one piece of functionality within Salesforce, that probably requires a lot less maintenance than something that's a little bit more robust. So the maintenance activities probably aren't all that much. But that being said, if you do want to make changes yourself, those are things that we do equip you with. At the end of the day, you work with a team like ours to help you implement Salesforce to meet your needs. And then from there, we also try to enable you to make certain changes yourself. So part of that enablement, as Tom touched on earlier, is creating some robust documentation, as well as delivering training to help you understand, here are the things that you need to be aware of and need to kind of own, if you will, going forward in the system. the reality is that Salesforce is a system that does, require some maintenance, and that if you are the nonprofit in charge of your Salesforce, there are things that you likely need to be doing. But the goal that we try to keep in mind is that we want to equip our clients so that they are kind of aware of everything that they need to do from a maintenance perspective, as well as we mentioned, Salesforce itself has very, very, very robust learning management system or a tool to help you learn how to do things in Salesforce called Trailhead. So again, we try to refer our clients as much as possible to Trailhead just to build their understanding of Salesforce in general. If you're a much larger nonprofit that has like a dedicated team for maintaining your system, then that's always a plus, because you have technical individuals who are able to kind of take ownership of certain aspects of the system. So that's always something that's good to have. But sometimes the reality is that nonprofits don't always have those types of resources. So in every project, though, there will be someone who needs to be, the admin of the system, and that admin will have different functions. You need to perform certain things depending on the size and scope of the project itself. But at the end of the day, it will require at least one admin to maintain it going forward, and the maintenance activities depend on how complex that system is.
Perfect. And Tom also echoed in the chat, delegate a system admin. So sounds like everyone's on the same page with that. Next question, looking at licensing. So what license do I need to be able to run a case management solution?
Sure, I can take this one on. So in terms of case and program management, so as we kind of touched on earlier, program management and case management are two different modules. So program management is a free solution that comes with Salesforce and works really well with the nonprofit success pack. So in terms of, if you just want to deal with program management, really all you need is, the Salesforce licenses that are provisioned when you purchase the platform. For case management, those are specific licenses, additional licenses that you need to purchase that can be assigned to your users. So I guess it's kind of the two-ended question here, or two-ended answer, where you need both Salesforce licenses, and if you want to extend that to case management, you also need to purchase the case management licenses.
Got it. Thank you. Do I need to implement both case and program management licenses in my solution, or will I need both?
Yeah, I'll defer to our favorite answer here. It depends. So program and case management are quite robust solutions that accommodate to different levels of complexity of your programs. So if you don't need to necessarily track a very detailed level in terms of how is each client progressing, in terms of you want to conduct assessments, you need client notes or case notes for each client, then if you don't need that, perhaps you don't need to use case management, and program management may suffice, where all you need to know is who are our clients, what programs have they enrolled in, and what services are they participating in. But if you do want to get more deeper on a personal level in terms of how exactly are we servicing these, and what does our engagement with our service providers look like, then case management, you could add that on. But I wanted to clarify that program management can work without case management, but case management is built upon program management there. So
got it.
Yes.
Thank you. And always a hot question, how much will this cost? I can certainly take that and go with the ever popular it depends, on the size and complexity of your organization. As a starting range, I've seen them start around 40 to 50,000 and go upwards from there. So again, really depends on your organization. But again, the ROI on all of these solutions has been huge, from the perspective of the time and money spent in putting them in place. We're going to be opening up the chat shortly for additional questions. So I'm inviting people to submit questions at this point. I do have some additional more general ones to go through as well, if nobody submits any questions in the chat. So as we wait for those to fill in, I've got a few more here that might be interesting to cover. What are some common trends in technology for human service organizations? What are you seeing?
I think that everyone is seeing this, but just the need to be able to function in a digital world, just given with the whole pandemic. I think that there was kind of this whole, I think that one of the buzzwords is this paradigm shift that has taken place within a lot of organizations, where now you still have these clients that require your services, but you're not able to meet with them physically. So how are you providing services to these individuals now digitally? So I think that this has been one of the biggest things, is it's building out a system to be able to deliver your services digitally. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we've seen over the last couple of years here. And one of the other trends I think that Lara touched on a bit is just the need to, or the want to pull data on demand from all of your services, all your programs, and all of your clients, kind of on demand, without needing to spend hours and hours, pulling together Excel reports and trying to create this dashboard. It should be that if users are in the system, kind of using the system the way it was built, all of these things exist as data, and you can pull them into reports and just pull those reports on demand. I think one of the other big things that we've seen, and this goes back to just organizations being able to function in a digital format now, is organizations now are, there's different units within an organization that have different processes that traditionally existed very, very siloed from one another. So that means one services organization could have a business unit providing services for one program, and have another program business unit delivering services for that program. And those things traditionally would have existed very siloed. But I think now there's this move to get everyone under kind of the same umbrella, if you will. And that way you have all of your staff, all of your case managers, all working with their clients under the same system. And because now you have all of these clients and staff working within the same system, you're able to see kind of holistic reporting at the high level to understand, like, how is my organization doing? How are all of my clients doing, without the need to go to one system or one set of templates to figure out how that program is doing and then navigate to the other one to see how they're doing. You can see kind of everything in one go.
That sounds magical. Looks like we have a question. What was your most memorable case in program management project? Tom, Cole, who wants to take this one?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
I think, and I'm not sure, are we allowed to speak on specific projects? Should I just leave the name out, Matt?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's an organization that we've worked with on a couple of projects on, and they're just a really, really awesome organization, great team, and really just, again, trying to digitize their organization. Some of the examples I brought up in terms of business units kind of existing in silo, that was a very, very real challenge for them, where they had a number of programs that they provided different services under those programs. So it's essentially like there's different business units under this organization, but now there was a whole digital transformation undertaken now, where all of these business units, all of their programs are now under kind of one roof, which is, Salesforce. I can't really get into too much specifics, but they are a really organized, really amazing organization that helped individuals with complex needs. So really just making a real impact for people who don't have it as easy as you or I. So I think that was probably my most memorable project.
I think for me, it's, one of the projects that's ongoing right now, and what we were able to show them, especially to their case managers, who deal and really meet with these clients one-on-one every day, is we showed them the capability or what Salesforce is capable of to cater to their needs, and they were just blown away in terms of the ease of use within the system and the value it brought in term from like a reporting aspect, and being able to act as like a central hub for all these administrative tasks and data that you collect. So I for that, it's really rewarding for us to see, for sure.
That sounds really, really awesome to see the impact of your day-to-day like that. Um, Going back to some of the questions that were submitted earlier, how has digital virtual working as a team impacted your ability to deliver service for your clients?
Well, I think in this space, especially for Salesforce centralized organizations like this, is its impact in terms of more of us internally. I would say for me, not a ton has drastically changed, other than perhaps maybe travel. Traveling to on-site to deliver services to clients and talk with them, deliver training and things like that. But even before this whole pandemic, we were able to deliver this through Zoom or whatever video conferencing um, was available for your organization. But I think even now, it's just really helped people that we deal with, or the clients that we deal with, reprioritize their technology stack, and now they're able to adapt to this shift, and they're more willing to meet on Zoom, more willing to just save time and work from home. So from a standpoint from Belmar, I don't think it's changed a ton, but I'm sure on the client side, it's made a pretty significant impact on the way they work.
Amazing. So, we're almost at time here. So I've got two questions that I think I'd really like to kind of end with. So the first one, actually, they're kind of the same question, but what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to someone that is embarking on a Salesforce journey? Any words of wisdom that you can offer a nonprofit prospects and clients?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's many. I would say don't underestimate the amount of work it takes, even though you are a nonprofit yourself and you may be working with a firm such as Belmar. Don't underestimate the amount of work that is required on your part, because ultimately, as an implementation firm, we are relying on you and your expertise and trying to extract as much of that from you as possible throughout the project. And that itself takes a lot of work in terms of just meetings, understanding what your requirements are, involving you in testing to make sure that the system meets kind of your meets your expectations. So I would say, one, don't underestimate the amount of work. And two, and sorry, Tom, maybe if I'm stealing your thunder on this answer, if you come into a Salesforce project, or if you're in the beginning stages, having your system, having your processes as defined as possible is something that is super helpful for us as an implementation firm, because it helps us understand what the system needs to do to help you accomplish those processes. Ultimately, you can't build a system around processes that don't work or don't exist. You need to first kind of iron out the processes and then build the system on top of that. So sometimes you may not have that that information, and it kind of will be a working session between us to help iron those things out. But if you are a nonprofit and you're smaller, as I mentioned before, Salesforce itself kind of is almost like a set of best practices or processes for certain things. So if you're brand new and you're kind of in your fledgling stages, then going onto Salesforce and seeing what they have and how, excuse me, how things function can almost give you those processes to help you define them yourself as an organization. Those are probably my two biggest ones.
Yeah, I'd say Cole definitely stole my thunder. No, I'm joking. You hit the nail on the head there. Understanding your processes, and that will help us really extract, the business requirements and functional requirements that the system needs to do, as Cole alluded to. So, and even for you when you're going into your Salesforce projects, or if you're thinking about adopting Salesforce in the future, just really understanding what you need the system to do, and just perhaps prepping those requirements beforehand, or just at least understanding what it needs to do. And another thing also, and we've talked about this a couple of times during the session, is make sure you have the right people in the room, not only the high level decision makers, but your end users as well. So we can, all have a holistic discussion that speaks to every level within your organization.
Awesome. I think those are a really good place to end. So, looking at making sure that you have the right people in the room in determining the appropriate solution, and really having a thorough understanding of your organization and processes before you embark on this. I think those are really great pieces of advice from both of you. So thank you everybody for participating today. This concludes our webinar and Q&A and my Ask Me Anything on case and program management. Thank you so much, Tom and Cole, for sharing your insights and your experience with us today. This recording will be available on the Belmar YouTube channel. If you want to stay up to date on our future Belmar events, you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, or on the Salesforce App Exchange. And before we completely wrap up, can we have a virtual drum roll for the raffle winners? Thank you. So we have pulled Phil Chu and Lin Zhang. So we will be reaching out to you regarding your winning the raffle and some awesome Belmar swag today. So thank you everybody for coming today, and stay safe.
Thanks everyone.
Bye everyone.